Keep your wellness routine going strong all summer. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition wherever you are, with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and more. Simplify your daily ritual. Go to Kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
Are you planning on going on a vacation this summer? Do you have a flight planned, booked, scheduled? Anything for the fall or going forward? We've had the airlines in the spotlight for much of 2026 because of, well, the cost of travel right now. The spike in jet fuel has all of the big airlines raising fuel surcharges on their tickets. Many are increasing baggage fees to offset costs. There's a whole bunch of things going on in the aviation sector that might have consumers a little bit reluctant to travel. We've also had, of course, flight disruptions in the United States due to government issues. But overall, over the past year, the aviation sector has seen a generalized increase in customer satisfaction. Yeah, the big airlines are doing better, making customers happy. Can that continue? And which of the airlines are doing the best job? Well, J.D. Power is out with the annual survey of airlines and customer satisfaction. And joining me on the line for In This Economy today is Michael Taylor, Senior Managing Director of Travel, Hospitality, Retail, and Customer Service at J.D. Power. Thanks for joining me, Michael. How are you doing?
You're quite welcome. I'm doing fine.
Excellent. It's been a year and only 5 months in, but I mean, of all the things, the airlines get a lot of grief. You see it on social media, one bad customer service experience, and that's what is the focus, right? It's not about the 99.5% of trips that go off without a hitch, and everybody, gets from point A to point B, no worse for wear, and generally it's a pretty positive experience. But what have you been seeing here? The airlines have actually been doing a better job over the past little while?
Yeah, in our latest study, which ended just as the Iran war was, or whatever you want to call it, Iran conflict, was just beginning. So it's a little bit of a different kind of environment that we measured in the previous 12 months, in comparison to the ones in the last 2 months. The airlines were doing a little better, mostly led by their investment in upper class cabin. First class, business class, and premium economy folks were much happier in 2025 through 2026 than they were in previous years. And there was a slight uptick as well in economy, just statistically not really relevant. But there were some nice jumps in the upper class cabins. And that's what caused the airline average to jump just a little bit.
Now, we're talking, this is North American only, right?
Right, just North America.
Okay, so, but that sounds to me like you get what you pay for. If you're paying for first class, you better get first class.
Yeah, that's true. And, post-COVID, that did slip quite a bit. They suspended a lot of things. There's a lot of logistics that go into, getting a meal on a flight. It's, not easy. And, of course, everybody makes fun of airline food simply because, they don't have a kitchen there. They've got to prepare this stuff off-site, get it on on an aircraft. You've seen those little scissor lifts they have next to it, and put those all in kind of hot storage and then unwrap them and serve them. And when you got 185 people on a flight, that's not easy to do. You're not normally serving a first class meal in an aluminum tube flying through the air at 450 miles an hour. So it's a little bit difficult to pull off. And, post-COVID, they kind of pulled some of that stuff back. They've been adding things to it. The airlines in general have found that the people who are in the upper class cabins, they make a lot more money on them for the, extra ticket price. And they're trying to court all those people. And it's in coordination with things like, getting the company, the airline credit card as well will help you get a lot of perks. But again, anytime you make a purchase and don't pay off at the end of the month, you're getting an 18% interest charge, which is pretty hefty. So those are some of the macroeconomics of why people in the upper class cabins have felt a little bit better about the experience than the people in the back of the bus.
Is there any? We'll focus on the U.S. airlines first, and then come back to the Canadian big two, if you will. But from a ranking standpoint, we always see JetBlue near the top, Delta pretty good, and Alaska Airlines. Those are always seen. Are there any big changes in the rankings of the top American airlines right now?
Yeah, the biggest one is Southwest Airlines, which, as everybody probably knows by now, changed the way they operate. They used to be very egalitarian, I guess is a good word. Where if you, booked your flight and you confirmed that you were going to be on the flight first, you got in line quicker than anybody else. And you could also pay to upgrade to stand in front of the line.
That's what I did with my family when we had little kids. I paid, I think it was like $15 extra to just get to the front and pick the seat early.
Right. Yeah. And so, and then also, they didn't have really much of a loyalty program. They did. It was actually fairly simple, which people actually liked quite a bit more than the more complex ones that the other airlines offer. And of course, they had great in-flight crew. If you've ever been on a Southwest flights, it's sort of a comedy show sometimes when they give the safety briefing. A lot of personality goes into that, and people perceive Southwest Airlines as being a good deal as far as getting from point A to point B. And I'll tell you that when I talk to my other airline clients, otherwise known as OA, and every airline, I don't know if you know this, every other airline is OA, other airline. So if you're talking to Delta and they say OA, they mean everybody else. And if you're talking to United, they also mean everybody else. So the OA, when I'm at the Southwest, they just can't understand why people would like that. And they were really founded that way. Southwest was really founded that way to be the anti-big airline. And for years and years they did it. However, certain investors who took a big interest in the stock itself said, hey, because we're not charging for bags, Southwest said bags fly for free. Because we're not charging for bags and because we're not charging for seating and because we don't have, fare classes where we can charge more for a seat on this aircraft, we're leaving a lot of money on the table. And that actually is true. And so they forced the management of Southwest to change the way they've been doing business for decades in order to get higher revenue, which apparently is what's happening. But in our J.D. Power study, when you introduce fees, that's the worst thing you can do as far as immediate impact on satisfaction, because people feel like they're being nickeled and dimed. And I always say the same thing. You are always paying for your bag. Nothing flew free. It's, they calculated the weight of people's luggage into the airfare itself. But when they broke it out, because of the way we buy tickets on the internet now, when they broke out those costs and found out that they could actually make more money by separating those fees or disaggregating them, as we call them, that kind of created an avalanche in the way people did business. So bags never flew free, but there's also a charge that is actually higher than what you would have paid had it been rolled into the airfare previously. And hopefully that was understandable. That was quite a long explanation.
Well, I just remember flying American one time, and I think there were 10 different categories.
Yeah. Yeah. They do want to parse out, who gets what. And certain airlines, which I won't name on this podcast, their operating model is, how can we get people to really pay for a higher, higher price seat? What can we take away from the back of the cabin so that the middle of the cabin and the front of the cabin becomes more attractive and they're willing to pay that much money? That really is their operating kind of zeitgeist or philosophy. And, for them, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, you can, as I always tell everybody, you can trade satisfaction and loyalty for revenue. And that's something that's happening in the airline business today.
Well, something that the CEOs of Delta and others have been talking about is the fact that they're seeing big revenue gains in in business class, executive class. Those are the money makers, and they're not really seeing a slowdown in that, which has been kind of surprising. But again, maybe there's this discussion of the K-shaped economy and all this that is in the mix here, but the airlines aren't exactly hurting in that category.
No, and it's also tied to a lot of credit card usage, which gets people in that upper class cabin faster based on the points that they accumulate. And again, just as General Electric in this country learned a few decades back, when you're operating a bank, and if you operate it successfully, you can make a lot of money. And in fact, most of these airlines are making more money off their credit card holders than they actually are flying aircraft, which is kind of an oxymoron, but that's exactly what's happening. And so tying those two together, getting those people into those more expensive seats, getting to pay for it every once in a while, is a very profitable business procedure. It is not like the old days, where you only had one set of seats. Nowadays, they try to parse you out as much as possible. And we've done credit card studies. We do credit card studies at JD Power. It's actually a big business of ours. And, one of the things that we found is that if people can understand how you earn points and how you spend them, it's much better. And but the pull towards most of the airlines is to make it very complicated in order to parse out these people and put them into little subcategories, where they can actually get more revenue out of those subcategories. And that sounds rather cold, but they're operating a business and they have shareholders just like every other corporation does.
The world is buzzing with AI tools, but instead of making things easier, they've made your workflow overwhelming. You're stuck copying and pasting, context switching, and juggling too many apps. There's now a better way that outsmarts the work chaos. Meet Superhuman, the AI productivity suite that gives you superpowers everywhere you work. With Grammarly, Mail, and Coda working together, you get proactive help across your workflow, from writing to preparing for meetings, presentations, and so much more. Think of Superhuman as your AI dream team, proactively helping you go from to-do to done faster. Superhuman knows what you might need and offers suggestions whether you're drafting emails, creating documents, or more. It guides you in the moment so you sound like your best self and stay focused on what matters. There are even specialized agents designed to collaborate seamlessly and amplify your impact. Unleash your superhuman potential today. Learn more at superhuman.com/podcast. That's superhuman.com/podcast.
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Let's talk a little bit about Air Canada and WestJet, because those are on your list as well. Just the headlines about both of those are they climbed the ranks for customer satisfaction, but not enough to kind of move up the ranks of the overall list, right?
Yeah, correct. Both Air Canada and WestJet actually improved satisfaction significantly from last year. They just didn't keep pace with the other folks. And again, part of it has to do with way the seat configurations go. For some of the big ones like Delta and JetBlue did a much better job with upper class cabin than Air Canada and WestJet did, but they have plans to catch up. So they did get better just in comparison to everybody else. They weren't as dynamic. Air Canada actually did very well in creating more value or perception of value for their airfare. What you got for your airfare at Air Canada. Now that didn't happen at WestJet. It doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. It just didn't happen this past year for them. So there was some good news, but when they look at the rankings, they think, oh my goodness, we're really behind. Well, actually, you did improve, just not as much, just not as fast as other folks did.
Well, in WestJet's case, I mean, they're owned now by Onyx, and there's been this perception, I think, that after they lost the identity of being an independent, publicly traded company that they kind of lost a little bit of their zeitgeist, if any, for lack of a better description, once they had a larger corporate structure. Has that? But you're saying that they've actually improved things behind the scenes. That customers are more.
They're slightly more impressed with WestJet. I think they went up. I believe they went up 20 points in at least the economy category, which is a nice jump.
How much of these airlines held back or downgraded, if you will, by the fact that they've got so many different types of customers and routes that they have to satisfy, for lack of a better description? They're flying small planes, they're flying big planes. Is there a difference in the customer experience because of that? If you're on a small CRJ or a Dash 8 or something of that nature, bouncing around, you're not going to get the same kind of feel that you will from a transatlantic or a trans-Pacific flight on a 787 Dreamliner or a 777.
Yeah, now that's actually an excellent observation. One of the things we tell our clients and various clients is we have a lot of them as clients. One of the advantages that Southwest has, one of the advantages that JetBlue has, is that they're flying just a couple different kind of aircraft because of the routes that they travel. So if you're going to step onto an aircraft and you're flying Southwest and you look right as you step on the aircraft, it looks almost the same. Every flight that you get on, you're not disappointed by it. Most people don't know what aircraft they're getting on. Probably 90% of people have no idea what kind of aircraft they're getting on, even though it says on the ticket. Until they actually step on the plane itself. And so, your expectations get a little bit jumpy, like, oh, gee, this isn't as big as I thought. There's not as much overhead bin space. Do I have to, go all the way down to my seat, find out there's no bin space, and then, get my bag all the way to the front and then have to spend time getting it from bag claim or at the, at the end of the ramp, that kind of thing. So, however, you can't operate a 777 on a short haul route, because you just won't make money. The 777s during the were used, in short commercial haul flights within the United States and I believe within Canada as well. During the COVID years, because you couldn't travel and Asia travel was very restricted, so they had to use those assets somehow. Although it isn't very economical to do that. So if you're going to fly from Saskatchewan to Toronto, you're likely going to get a smaller aircraft than flying from Toronto to Paris. And that just makes sense. And as I tell our other customers, the OA, that have the, multitude of aircraft, the 20 different kind of aircraft that they're traveling, is that, you couldn't have a 737 on every flight because you'd lose money and your shareholders would have you all fired. But it is an advantage when you're a passenger to have your expectations met on a regular basis and not having any surprises. And so that is a kind of a built-in advantage to some of these, monotype, aircraft fleets that we see like in JetBlue and Southwest, and to a certain extent, Alaska. Alaska's been a little bit different since they've acquired a bunch of different assets and are trying to be a bigger airline. And they're even flying to Europe now, which is brand new for them. So anyway, it is something of a trade-off as far as satisfaction and being able to service routes.
I'm just looking here at the list of questions that you present to customers of these airlines in this survey, Michael. And some of these things are, I would think, kind of out of the airline's control. For example, the issue of, it's kind of in their control, but cost and fees. And again, this latest round of results that you guys have published came before the jet fuel issue that has now developed because of the war in the Middle East. So does that just immediately shift or skew some of the numbers here as customers this summer are looking at, well, what did I see just the other day about the price for flights in the States up by almost 20% compared to a year ago, just because they got to raise all these fees?
Oh, yeah. And just in my own travel, I'm going down to Florida to play golf in June. And just going from the New York area to Orlando was something like an $800 ticket. Bought 3 months in advance. I'm like, wow. I've never seen that before. I am not flying that airline, or I'm not going to Orlando. I'm going to another airport and then driving a little bit to get to the golf course I want to get to. So yeah, it does change people's behaviors. Now, costs and fees is definitely within That's something the airline can control themselves, and fees especially. And I think we mentioned on the radio that bag fees and other fees have gone up dramatically in the United States simply because there's no excise tax to be paid. If you're going to raise your airfare, you're going to pay, I believe, 7.5% to the federal government as an excise tax on your airfare. But if you raise the bag fee, there isn't 7.5%. So the bean counters at the airlines said, okay, well, if we're going to, goose prices in the short term and, roll them back when the price of oil comes down, let's make ourselves 7.5% more money by not paying the tax man. So that's, again, that's based on what we've seen in the past at JD Power. That's probably the opposite strategy you want to take in order to build satisfaction and loyalty, because people do feel like they're getting nickel and dimed. But the airfares have gone up so dramatically, it is rather shocking. I mean, I was shocked by that. I think the last time I flew to Florida, I think I paid $380 round trip, and I certainly wasn't going to pay double that.
Flying across Canada is not cheap. It never has been. That's one of the criticisms here about the idea. Why does it cost so much for me? It costs us less to fly to the States than it does, across to Vancouver, for example. The other thing that's obviously been in the headlines in the States, and we had that government shutdown, the TSA, ICE agents at airports, all these other things. Is that part of the flight customer experience? I personally think it is. I like the, if you get through the airport, free and clear and smooth, and you're not in huge lines, that immediately sets you in a better mood before you get on the flight, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. I believe one of the CEOs, I want to say it was Delta, was saying, the airport can really annoy our customers. I don't think he used the word annoy. He used another word. Annoy our customers before they even get on our aircraft. And so it's sort of a symbiotic relationship. And that is exactly right. What we tell people I also do the airport study for JD Power and have for 28 years now. And one of the things that we tell people in the travel ribbon, of the things that can happen during a travel experience, getting to the airport, getting on an airline, renting a car, renting a hotel room. The airport and the airline have much lower satisfaction simply because there's a deadline associated with it, and people are stressed. And when they have a deadline, I always tell people that if you're late for your hotel rooms, no problem. They toss you another set of keys. They do the same thing if you're late for your rental car. But if you're late for your airline flight, well, you've got problems, and they usually tend to be a lot more expensive. So that's something about the two parts of that travel ribbon: the airport experience and the airline experience. I got to be at this gate at this time, get on board. And, people get very upset when they don't board on time. And especially so if the flight becomes late or arrives late, especially if they're connecting. There's that deadline issue there that really does affect satisfaction. And they do. And really, the airport experience has gotten better. The biggest thing we find, and as a closing thought on this, the biggest swing that we see besides construction on the airport is how much traffic is there, car traffic, getting to the airport, which will cause me to feel like I don't have enough time to get on the aircraft and do the things I want to do in the airport.
What's the spillover effect, if there is one, from the collapse of Spirit Airlines in the United States, specifically on the main lines? Is it just a situation of, does that affect customer service elsewhere, or is it the discount category? Is that kind of separate?
It's not really separate. The thing about the airline industry is it's still very commodity based. I want to go from point A to point B. I want to go from Toronto to Miami. And the first thing I'm looking at is, how much is that going to cost me? And do I like the service I'm going to get from this provider? What's the reputation? Do I trust them to get me there relatively on time? As you were talking about at the top of this podcast, about 92% of flights come within 15 minutes of their expected arrival time. So that the actual performance is actually quite good. It's the 8% that you always remember. But it's about 92% of flights arrive within 15 minutes of their scheduled time. So they do a great job for the most part, depending on the weather, of course. Sometimes you have bad weather years and that messes with that average. But as far as Spirit goes, I tell people that demand for those tickets is not going away. It's going to be reabsorbed by other providers. and it'll provide opportunity for usually for the bigger ones, who might want to fly to those particular markets. There's also going to be aircraft available they can repaint and refurbish and use as their own. So that demand isn't going to go away. Now, the pricing is likely going to change. I mean, fewer suppliers, the higher the price. It's just simple economics. So yes, it probably will cost a little bit more. And there's always going to be demand for low cost, getting you from point A to point B as cheaply as possible. There's always going to be demand for that type of ticket. Unfortunately, it's hard to make money offering that kind of thing. The one thing we see in the J.D. Power numbers is those folks who are flying, Frontier and Spirit and the other ULCCs, including Allegiant, which does very well, actually, they're the least loyal people. They're just looking for a bargain and or a coupon. And if they don't have a coupon, they're not going to fly you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. I just, for everybody, this year has already been one filled with stress. So let's hope that everybody who goes on vacation this year can actually find a good deal someplace and have a low stress experience, including yourself going to Florida. That's great. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Michael. Great conversation.
You're very much welcome.
That was Michael Taylor, the Senior Managing Director of Travel, Hospitality, Retail, and Customer Service at J.D. Power. You've been listening to the In This Economy podcast. Hope you liked it, and if you have any feedback, you can contact me on social media. My handle there is @Eppman. That's EPPMAN. You can send me an email directly to my inbox at mike.eppel@rci.rogers.com. We'll talk again soon.
The world is buzzing with AI tools, but instead of making things easier, they've made things overwhelming. There's a better way. Meet Superhuman, the AI productivity suite that gives you superpowers so you can outsmart the work chaos. With Grammarly, Mail, and Coda working together, you get proactive help across your workflow, no matter how you work. Experience AI that meets you right where you are. Unleash your superhuman potential today. Learn more at superhuman.com/podcast. That's superhuman.com/podcast.
When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.